What if the secret to financial success wasn't about earning more, but about spending less and saving steadily over time? What if, instead of rushing toward the finish line, the true winners were those who took their time, methodically, consistently, allowing their wealth to grow like a slow, patient river? The tortoise, with her steady pace and unwavering focus, is about to show you why slow and steady truly wins the financial race. The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon, casting a warm golden glow across the forest. The tortoise sat perched on her favorite rock, deep in thought. Her friends, the rabbit and the cheetah, zipped by in the distance, their swift movements a blur of energy. The tortoise, by contrast, was perfectly still, taking in the quiet moment. But in her stillness, a question lingered. Could financial patience, her most defining quality, ever lead to something truly great? Could being slow and steady in a world that prized fast wealth and quick returns actually bring lasting success? Maybe I'm not doing this right, she murmured to herself. Everyone else is racing ahead. Maybe I need to catch up. Her eyes wandered to the horizon, watching the others race off to new and exciting adventures. But inside her shell, something else was stirring, a sense of doubt. Could a life built on small, deliberate choices truly lead to financial freedom? Or was she forever doomed to be left behind by those seeking instant gratification? As Tortoise continued her quiet contemplation, the rabbit burst through the trees, his usual speedy self, practically out of breath. "Tortoise," he said with a grin, "you wouldn't believe it. I just heard about this amazing investment opportunity. There's a fortune to be made, and it's all about moving fast. All we need to do is act quickly, and we'll be rich." The words hit her like a thunderclap. Could this be the chance she had been waiting for? The world around her seemed to be moving faster every day, and the temptation to race after high returns was overwhelming. But then, just as the rabbit began to outline the investment details, Tortoise noticed something. The words sounded too good to be true. Fast money. Fast returns. Was this how things really worked? She'd heard stories about such schemes before, but they always ended badly. That's when she remembered something her grandmother had once said: "Start with what you have, and let it grow. But remember, patience is the secret seed." The memory hung in the air like a sweet fragrance. Was that what she needed to focus on instead of chasing after fleeting dreams? That night, Tortoise lay awake under the stars, wondering whether the slow and steady path was the right one after all. What if her grandmother's wisdom had been the key all along? Could she really build wealth through small, consistent choices? Or was she just too late to catch up with the fast-moving world around her? The following day, Tortoise knew she had to find out. But the question lingered. Could slow and steady really win the race in today's fast-paced world of investment and wealth building? The next morning, as Tortoise strolled through the forest, her mind was still spinning. But then, something caught her eye. A small tree growing at the edge of the path, its leaves fragile yet vibrant. It was just a sapling, but it was alive, growing in its own time. It reminded her of her grandmother's words, and suddenly, everything clicked. She remembered a lesson from the wise owl about compound interest. How small, consistent deposits could accumulate over time. It wasn't about how much you had to start with. It was about contributing what you could, and letting it grow. The more time you gave it, the more it would blossom. "Interest on top of interest," she muttered. "Like the rings of a tree." But here's the truth. It wasn't always as simple as it sounded. Tortoise knew that financial success wasn't just about putting money aside. It was about understanding the value of patience in wealth building. Every little bit added up, like the slow, steady growth of a tree. But the trick was consistency. As Tortoise continued along the path, she came across her old friend the squirrel, who was holding a shiny piece of paper in his paw. "Tortoise, you've got to hear this," the squirrel said excitedly. "I just found an investment opportunity that could double my money in a year. What do you think?" Tortoise felt a pang of doubt. She had always stuck to her slow and steady ways, but now there was a tempting option right in front of her. The idea of quick returns tugged at her. But could it really be that easy? Could high-risk investments truly deliver on their promises? "Tortoise," the squirrel pressed, "this could be the chance of a lifetime. Are you in or out?" Tortoise stood there for a moment, frozen in indecision. Was this the investment opportunity she had been waiting for? Or was this another get-rich-quick scheme? Tortoise knew she needed to make a decision soon, but she couldn't shake the memory of her grandmother's letter. Therefore, she decided to take her time. But then, the squirrel's words echoed in her mind. "Are you in or out?" The morning sun broke through the trees, casting long shadows across the forest floor. Tortoise stood by the stream, her thoughts swirling like the water rushing past her. She had spent the entire night pondering her decision. The world was full of voices urging her to rush, to grab at opportunities that promised quick wealth. But deep down, she knew that what she sought, financial freedom, stability, and lasting wealth, would require more than just a quick grab. But here's the truth. The temptation to take the shortcut was strong, and as she felt the cool breeze against her shell, she couldn't ignore the nagging question that kept her awake last night. What if slow and steady wasn't enough anymore? What if the fast track was the way forward? As Tortoise walked along the stream, her mind raced. Investment opportunities were all around her, promises of high returns, overnight success, and financial independence. The world seemed to be spinning faster than she could keep up. But then, she remembered something her grandmother had told her. Slow growth may seem insignificant at first, but in the long run, it always wins. Tortoise wasn't sure. The high-risk investments the squirrel had shown her had a certain allure, quick returns, instant gratification. But she also knew the dangers of rushing in without understanding the consequences. Was this the right path? Was it time to put her faith in the long term, in the power of compound interest? That evening, Tortoise found herself at the edge of the forest, gazing at the towering oak tree in the distance. She had always admired its steady growth. It hadn't grown tall overnight. It had taken time, years of slow, steady progress, year after year. And yet, it was the most powerful thing in the entire forest. Its branches reached high, providing shelter to birds and animals. Its roots dug deep into the earth, providing stability no storm could shake. But then, a thought hit her. Had the oak tree been too slow? If it had grown too slowly, would it have missed opportunities to expand its branches? The world around her was changing. Everything was moving faster, and she couldn't help but wonder if the high returns the rabbit and squirrel spoke of were truly the way forward. The next day, she went to meet the rabbit again. "I've been thinking about what you said," Tortoise told him. "I'm not sure what's the right choice anymore. Quick returns or slow growth. It's a tough decision." Rabbit's eyes twinkled. "Tortoise, if you don't take the chance, you might miss out on something big. Wealth isn't made by sitting back and waiting. It's about making smart choices, grabbing opportunities when they come." Tortoise hesitated. Could she trust his advice, or was it just another empty promise? Could fast returns really lead to sustainable success? The more she thought about it, the more the question gnawed at her. Later that evening, Tortoise decided to visit the wise owl, who had always been a source of guidance. But the truth is, she wasn't entirely sure what she would ask. She was torn between the alluring idea of quick wealth and the steady wisdom she had always relied on. Could the fast-paced world of high returns really deliver on its promises? When she found the owl, perched on a branch high above, Tortoise spoke up. "I've been considering the idea of quick investments, opportunities that promise high returns. But part of me feels like I'm rushing. What do you think?" The owl's eyes glowed with wisdom as he replied, "Tortoise, it's tempting to grab the fast money, but it's fleeting. True wealth, lasting success, comes from small, consistent steps, whether in investments, savings, or even personal growth. There's power in consistency." Tortoise nodded slowly, but the words from the squirrel still echoed in her mind. High returns, fast money. Was it possible that she was being too cautious? But then, the owl continued, "Remember that slow growth, like the tortoise's pace, compounds over time. And just like with compound interest, you must give things time to grow." At that moment, something inside Tortoise clicked. She realized that true financial success wasn't about grabbing quick returns or acting impulsively. It was about creating a foundation, something solid. The wealth that lasts is built on patience, time, and consistent effort. With newfound clarity, Tortoise decided to spend the next week examining both options, the slow and steady approach, as well as the fast-track route the rabbit and squirrel were so excited about. She would take the time to research, analyze, and weigh the risks carefully. But as she walked away from the owl's perch, she couldn't shake the feeling that the forest was changing. Was she too late to act? Was the world leaving her behind as it rushed forward toward high-stakes investments and rapid success? Tortoise knew that she could no longer stay on the sidelines. Therefore, she made a pact with herself to examine every opportunity with a clear, patient mind. But the truth is, the pressure to rush was mounting, and she didn't know if she could continue resisting. Tortoise had never been one to rush, but as the days passed, the high returns and promises of quick wealth started to gnaw at her. Her peaceful, slow pace was beginning to feel outdated, like a ship stranded in the past while the world sailed ahead at full speed. What if she was missing her moment? What if quick money really was the way forward? But then, a thought stopped her in her tracks. What if she could have both? Could she balance the patience of the tortoise with the quick rewards of the rabbit? She didn't want to be left behind, but she also didn't want to make a reckless mistake. Tortoise stood at the crossroads of her future, facing a decision that would shape the rest of her life. On one side, there was the familiar, steady path of saving, budgeting, and investing for the long term. It was the path she knew well, boring, some might say, but it had always worked for her ancestors. On the other side lay the allure of high-risk investments, stocks that promised quick returns, and opportunities that made her heart race. The squirrel's words echoed in her mind. Wealth isn't made by sitting back and waiting. You've got to act fast. Grab those opportunities when they come. Tortoise's shell was heavy with indecision. But then she realized something. The world wasn't moving as fast as she had assumed. Wealth wasn't just about speed. It was about strategy. And maybe the strategy wasn't just about slow and steady. Perhaps there was a middle ground. That evening, Tortoise found herself looking at the horizon, the stars shining above. She had been deep in thought all day, wrestling with her emotions. Then, it struck her. The art of investing wasn't simply about quick returns or playing it safe. It was about timing. The question wasn't whether she should go for high returns. The question was, how can she make the most out of both worlds? The more she thought about it, the more it made sense. A diversified approach. A strategy that combined patience with opportunistic risk-taking. She could still build her long-term wealth, but she could also take calculated risks when the right opportunities arose. The more she pondered this idea, the more it resonated with her. But just as she was beginning to make sense of it all, the squirrel appeared from behind a bush, eyes wide with excitement. "Tortoise," he called, "you're not going to believe this. There's an opportunity right now that could change everything. The market's ripe for high returns. It's not just another quick buck, it's a game changer." Tortoise froze. She had spent so much time weighing her options, but now, it seemed the perfect opportunity had come knocking. She turned slowly to face the squirrel. "Tell me more," she said, but her mind was racing. Was this the big opportunity that would make everything fall into place? Or was it another quick money trap she had been warned about? The squirrel eagerly explained, "This is it, Tortoise. We've been tracking this market for weeks. If we act fast, we could see returns like we've never seen before. Invest now, and you could triple your savings in just a few months." Tortoise's heart raced, but she paused to think. But the truth is, no matter how tempting the offer seemed, there were always risks. Was this too good to be true? Could she trust the squirrel's excitement, or was he just caught up in the hype? Tortoise spent the night deliberating. She paced around the forest, the moonlight filtering through the trees. But then, something the owl had once said flashed through her mind. "It's not about avoiding risk altogether, Tortoise. It's about understanding it, embracing it, and taking calculated steps." She thought about her goals: financial freedom, stability, and long-term wealth. The stakes were high, and she couldn't afford to rush. But maybe this was the chance to take that step forward, to test her strategy of balance. The next morning, Tortoise sat down at her desk. She pulled out a notebook, filled with scribbled numbers, risk assessments, and notes from her talks with Rabbit and Squirrel. She reviewed everything: the long-term benefits of steady investments, the high-risk opportunities, and the lessons of compound interest that had been drilled into her for years. But the truth was, the idea of fast money was compelling. Could she really ignore the chance to jump on this opportunity? But then, something unexpected happened. As she sat there, a message came. It was a message from the owl. "You've got a choice to make, Tortoise. Don't forget that wealth is not just about returns, it's about peace of mind. Be careful what you chase." Tortoise stared at the message, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on her. The fast return was tempting, but the more she thought about it, the more she realized that peace of mind was worth more than quick wealth. As she stood up, Tortoise made a decision. She wasn't going to rush. But the truth is, it wasn't that simple. The world was pulling her in different directions. Could she afford to wait and take her time? Was it possible to build wealth slowly while still seizing opportunities when they arose? And as she stepped out into the sunlight, something in her gut told her this wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. Tortoise made a pact with herself to be patient, to consider all her options carefully. But the question remained, what if acting fast could be the key to her success? Therefore, she decided to continue researching, weighing her options. But the truth is, the more she learned, the more she realized that there were no easy answers, only paths, some shorter and riskier, others longer but more secure. Tortoise begins to realize the importance of balanced risk-taking in building wealth, as she moves towards a strategy that combines the steady pace of traditional wisdom with the opportunities for quick returns. The sound of rustling leaves filled the air as Tortoise walked through the woods, her thoughts tangled like the vines at her feet. Patience had always been her virtue, but as she continued to watch the world around her move faster, she couldn't help but wonder, was it too late for patience? Had she missed her moment? But then, the wind shifted, carrying with it the scent of change. The path ahead wasn't clear, and Tortoise wasn't sure if she could afford to stay in her slow lane anymore. Was there a way to blend the quick winds of the world with her timeless wisdom? Tortoise stood at a crossroads once again. This time, it wasn't just about the opportunity Squirrel had presented her with. It was about the nature of wealth itself. Could she combine her methodical approach with a bit of the risk she had avoided for so long? The squirrel's voice rang in her head. Quick returns, they're like lightning. You have to be ready when the storm hits. But what if the storm passed and left nothing behind but the ruins of ambition? She couldn't ignore the allure of those high returns, but she also knew that patience was her ally. It had worked for her ancestors and had always been a steady guide in a world full of uncertainty. But was there a balance to be struck between the slow, steady steps of her ancestors and the electrifying rush of wealth that others were chasing? Tortoise wasn't sure, but she was about to find out. As she ventured deeper into the woods, Tortoise ran into Owl, who was perched calmly on a branch. "I see you're troubled," Owl said, eyes glimmering in the dim light. "The wind is full of choices, but the real question is, do you trust your instincts?" Tortoise had always trusted her instincts. They had served her well. But the world had changed. Opportunities were presenting themselves faster than ever, and quick returns seemed so enticing. Owl seemed to sense her hesitation. "The world is speeding up, Tortoise. But just because the winds are fast doesn't mean you have to race with them. Sometimes, the strongest trees grow slow." "But the world's moving on without me," Tortoise admitted. "I'm starting to think patience isn't enough. What if quick money could change everything for me?" Owl nodded slowly. Patience is never enough on its own. Speed, timing, and calculated risk, that's the full formula. The problem isn't moving too fast or too slow, it's not knowing when to shift gears. Tortoise absorbed Owl's words. Timing was key. Maybe she didn't need to abandon her slow, steady approach. Perhaps she could adapt it to the world as it was now. She could still be Tortoise, but smarter, wiser, and more agile. Just as Tortoise began to feel like she had unlocked the secret to balancing speed and patience, she felt a rush of wind, a whisper of opportunity in the form of a new voice. "Don't listen to the owl," came the voice. Tortoise turned quickly, spotting Rabbit at the edge of the clearing. "Patience, speed. All those ideas are outdated, Tortoise. If you want real wealth, you need to move fast, or you'll be left behind. Trust me, I've seen it happen." Tortoise's heart raced. Was Rabbit right? Was this the moment she had been waiting for, or was this just another temptation? Tortoise took a step back, trying to make sense of everything. But the truth is, Rabbit's words were hard to ignore. He had always been fast, and his wealth had grown quickly. Perhaps speed was the real answer. But then, Tortoise remembered what Owl had said. Timing wasn't about speed alone. It was about knowing when to push forward and when to hold back. Patience and speed could coexist if she mastered the art of choosing her moments wisely. Rabbit's impatience, her own careful deliberations, they both had merit. But what if there was something in between, something that combined the power of risk with the steady wisdom of patience. The next few days were filled with deep thought and reflection. Tortoise met with Squirrel, Rabbit, and Owl, listening to their different perspectives. Each one had a piece of the puzzle. Squirrel talked about the market's volatility and the need to strike when the iron was hot. Rabbit spoke passionately about the rush of opportunity and the wealth that came with quick, bold moves. But the more Tortoise listened, the more she realized something crucial. There was no one-size-fits-all formula. Each of her friends had a different approach to wealth, and they had all experienced different kinds of success. That night, Tortoise sat by the river, watching the moonlight reflect on the water's surface. She thought about her options, her friends' advice, and her own goals. But then, something strange happened. A low voice whispered in the wind, an opportunity unlike any she had ever considered before. It was from an unexpected source. Tortoise was left with more questions than answers. Could this be the chance that would give her the balance between speed and patience she had been searching for? Or was this yet another distraction pulling her off course? As Tortoise continued her journey, she realized that each decision carried its own weight. Therefore, she decided to test the waters, balancing quick decisions with careful research. It wouldn't be easy, and it wouldn't be fast. But the art of wealth, she had come to understand, wasn't just about speed or patience, it was about wisdom. The wisdom to know when to wait, when to leap, and when to walk. Tortoise is at a crossroads, caught between the slow, steady approach that has served her well and the allure of fast wealth that Rabbit and Squirrel have introduced. Patience, speed, and timing are all crucial elements to building lasting wealth. The morning light barely touched the edge of the forest when Tortoise heard a strange noise, a distant rumble that sent a shiver down her spine. Her heart raced. What was that? Was it the wind? The trees swayed violently, but no gust could explain what she had just felt. The rumble grew louder, and in the distance, a dark cloud seemed to gather at the horizon. This wasn't just an ordinary storm. This was something bigger, something more dangerous. But then, just as quickly as it had started, the rumble stopped. The air grew still. Was it a warning? Or was it a sign of something more significant? Tortoise's mind was racing. The rumble had been strange, almost as if the land itself was warning her of something. But she couldn't place it yet. The sun was high now, and she had gathered her thoughts. Over the past few days, the debates with Rabbit, Squirrel, and Owl had intensified. Each of them had their theories on how to achieve wealth, and all of them were powerful in their own right. However, one thing they didn't seem to consider was the invisible forces that shaped wealth, forces beyond speed, beyond patience. Wealth wasn't just a simple exchange of money or quick returns. There were deeper, unseen forces at play, factors that could make or break any decision. Tortoise had come to realize that timing, opportunity, and strategy were essential, but what truly separated the successful from the unsuccessful was the ability to navigate these unseen forces. The influence of chance, luck, and timing that others didn't control but still could harness. She couldn't put her finger on it yet, but she knew one thing. If she could understand and navigate these forces, she could play the game of wealth more skillfully than anyone else. Just as Tortoise was contemplating these unseen forces, she ran into Badger, a figure who had been known to lurk in the shadows of the woods. Unlike Owl, who was calm and philosophical, Badger was brash and unapologetic in his approach to wealth. He had never been one to shy away from taking risks. "Are you still debating about patience and speed, Tortoise?" Badger asked, his deep voice cutting through the silence. "You're overthinking it. Wealth isn't about patience or timing. It's about finding the right opportunity and then grabbing it with both hands. The world is filled with chance. You just have to act when it presents itself." Tortoise was surprised. Badger had always been a gambler. He didn't rely on slow, careful steps. He made his money by taking risks. "But there's more to it than that, isn't there?" she asked. Badger grinned. "You think too much, Tortoise. Yes, timing matters. But it's about being in the right place at the right time. Everything else is just noise. You'll never get anywhere by waiting for the perfect moment." Tortoise frowned. She couldn't help but feel that Badger's view was too simplistic. But he wasn't entirely wrong. Maybe it wasn't just about patience or speed, it was about seizing the moment when it came. As Tortoise walked away from Badger, she felt torn. Was Badger right? Was she overthinking things, bogged down by the need to play it safe? Could wealth truly be about seizing the moment and not about carefully building a foundation over time? The rumble from earlier in the day echoed in her mind. It was as though the universe itself was urging her to make a decision. But then, she recalled the words of Owl, the ones that had stuck with her all along. It's about knowing when to shift gears. It wasn't just about acting fast or moving slow. It was about understanding the opportunity, timing, and the forces that surrounded each decision. Later that evening, Tortoise received an unexpected visit. Squirrel appeared in the clearing, looking as though he had just run a marathon. "What's happened?" Tortoise asked, noticing Squirrel's frantic energy. "Squirrels are quick," he panted, "but sometimes, being too fast leads to mistakes. A mistake just cost me half my fortune. I jumped at the wrong opportunity, and now I'm left scrambling to pick up the pieces." Tortoise stood still, processing what Squirrel had said. Was quickness, the very thing that had always seemed to promise immediate wealth, actually a double-edged sword? Squirrel's hurried pace had led to his downfall. He was trying to recover from a bad decision, a decision he had rushed into without understanding the forces at play. Luck had been fleeting, and now Squirrel was realizing the cost of not weighing risks carefully. That night, after all the chaos, Tortoise sat by the river once more, her thoughts swirling like the water beneath her. She thought about Squirrel's mistake, Badger's reckless confidence, and Owl's steady wisdom. Each of them had something valuable to offer. But then, she felt something stir in the air, another rumble, this one closer. The earth seemed to be vibrating, sending a warning, a reminder that the game was changing. What was it? Was it an opportunity, or was it a dangerous force she had yet to understand? The sound was getting louder, and this time, she couldn't ignore it. Was it time for her to take action? Or was this another challenge that required her to wait and watch? As the day drew to a close, Tortoise realized something profound. Wealth wasn't just about patience or speed. It wasn't even just about luck or opportunity. Wealth required the ability to understand and navigate unseen forces. Forces that were unpredictable, but also malleable with the right strategy. Therefore, she decided she would take a calculated approach, measuring her risks and shifting gears at the right time. She didn't have to follow anyone else's path. She could trust her instincts and apply everything she had learned from her friends' differing perspectives. Tortoise comes to the realization that wealth is influenced by a combination of patience, speed, timing, and the unseen forces that shape opportunities. She learns from Squirrel's mistake that acting hastily can be just as dangerous as waiting too long. Balance is now the key to mastering wealth in her eyes. The sun had set, leaving behind a sky filled with scattered stars. Tortoise stared at the horizon, where the shadows seemed to stretch endlessly. Could this be it? Could this be the moment she had been waiting for? The great opportunity that would set her on the path to wealth? But as she walked toward the village, something felt off. The once familiar path now seemed like a maze of decisions and missteps, each one leading her deeper into uncertainty. What if it was all an illusion? Suddenly, a shadow darted in front of her, Sparrow, flitting quickly between the trees. "Tortoise," he called out, his voice low, almost a whisper. "You've come too far to ignore the truth." Tortoise's heart skipped. The truth. What did Sparrow know that she didn't? After their brief conversation in the clearing, Tortoise was more confused than ever. She knew the world of wealth wasn't just about speed, patience, or unseen forces. It was also about avoiding false wealth, the illusion of riches that could derail anyone. Sparrow had alluded to something dangerous, but what was it? The next day, Tortoise took her usual walk through the village. Everywhere she looked, people were hustling, bustling, and rushing about their day. The sound of carts creaking under the weight of their cargo, the chatter of the townspeople, and the steady hum of activity made it clear that everyone was in pursuit of success. Yet, as Tortoise passed one of the grand merchant stalls, a thought nagged at her. The merchandise was shiny, but it felt empty. The gold coins on display glittered in the sunlight, but something didn't sit right. Was this real wealth? Tortoise paused. She recognized that chasing after what appeared to be wealth could be more dangerous than not having any wealth at all. False wealth was about outward appearances, showing off success without having a true foundation underneath. She couldn't help but remember something Owl had once said, "True wealth isn't in what you see, it's in what you build." As she walked away, She overheard a conversation between two townspeople discussing the latest gold rush. The opportunity to strike it rich seemed too good to be true, and that made Tortoise wary. She had learned that easy money often led to deeper traps. Tortoise walked back to the village clearing, where she often sat to think. As she settled down under the canopy of trees, the rumble from the day before returned, faint but persistent in the distance. This time, she didn't brush it off. She closed her eyes and listened carefully. It wasn't just the world's rumble, it felt like a warning, a call to pause and reflect. Just then, Squirrel approached. "You look troubled," he remarked. "What's going on in that mind of yours, Tortoise?" Tortoise took a deep breath. "I'm beginning to see that wealth isn't just about opportunity. There's something deeper to it, something I've been missing." Squirrel raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" "False wealth. The idea that a quick gain or outward appearance of success will lead to happiness and prosperity." She paused, watching the light flicker through the trees. "But I've seen it before. People chasing the shiny things in life, only to be left with nothing but regret." Squirrel nodded, his expression somber. "I know the feeling. It's the same with quick riches. People are always looking for the fast path, the shortcut. But they miss the point. The real wealth is in building it, step by step." Tortoise knew that Squirrel was speaking from experience. He had seen how quickly things could go wrong when someone put their trust in a fleeting opportunity. But there was one more thing Tortoise had yet to understand. The rumble from earlier had grown louder, as though the world itself was shaking, warning her of what was to come. The false wealth of the merchants, the promises of riches from a quick deal, and the blind pursuit of shortcuts, all of it pointed to a dangerous truth. Wealth had to be built on integrity, on long-term foundations, and true value. Anything less was a lie, a trap, and a sure way to lose everything. Tortoise had to make her next move count, or risk falling into the trap of false promises. As night began to fall, Tortoise couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something that would challenge everything she had learned. The rumbling was constant now, echoing like a drumbeat in her chest. Was it a warning? Or was it just the weight of her own thoughts? Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, the very last person she expected. Badger, the gambler, had returned. "Still thinking it over, Tortoise?" Badger's voice was low and tinged with something darker than usual. "You're looking for the right path. But let me tell you something, there's no such thing as the right path. There's only the path that gets you what you want, quickly." Tortoise's eyes narrowed. Was this it? Had Badger found another shortcut to wealth? Or was he about to reveal something even more dangerous? Tortoise stood frozen, staring at Badger. She had always been cautious of him, and now, more than ever, she questioned whether he truly understood the path to sustainable wealth. Was Badger right? Could she simply seize the moment and take a shortcut, like him? Or was it more important to stay true to the principles of patience and integrity that she had learned from Owl? But the truth is, every step felt like a gamble, one she wasn't sure she was ready to take. Therefore, she needed to trust her instincts and understand the deeper forces at play. Tortoise confronts the concept of false wealth, the trap of chasing after superficial riches that appear to promise success but lack the foundation to sustain it. She realizes that true wealth requires a steady, long-term strategy based on integrity and value. However, with the arrival of Badger and his seductive promises of quick wealth, Tortoise faces a choice. Will she continue on her careful path, or will she risk everything for the allure of easy success? The moon hung high in the sky, casting a soft, ethereal glow over the village. Tortoise walked alone, her mind a storm of questions. Had she learned enough? Was she truly ready to face the final challenge? The one that would determine her fate, whether she could reject false promises and embrace a life built on integrity. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sound, footsteps, deliberate and heavy, cutting through the stillness of the night. She turned to find Badger, his eyes glinting with an unsettling mixture of determination and frustration. "You can't keep running from this, Tortoise," Badger said, his voice low but sharp. "The world moves fast, and if you're not fast enough, you'll be left behind." But then, the truth hit her hard. She had spent so much of her life pacing carefully, building slowly, step by step. Was she too slow? Would she be left in the dust while others sprinted ahead? Tortoise took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision before her. Badger had always been the epitome of instant gratification. His flashy deals, his quick wins, everything he stood for was a temptation to jump on the bandwagon of shortcuts. But now, standing there in the moonlight, Tortoise realized something profound. Her path wasn't about how fast she could go or how many shortcuts she could take. It was about staying true to herself, about building something that lasted. Sustainable wealth came from patience, understanding, and consistency. She had already witnessed too many people fall into the trap of chasing instant success, only to end up with nothing. Badger's eyes narrowed, as if he could sense her reluctance. "I thought you'd be smarter than this," he sneered. "But you're too focused on principles. Principles don't make you rich. I've made more money than you'll ever see, and I did it by taking risks, risks that paid off." Tortoise felt a surge of doubt, but she pushed it aside. Was it worth it? The flashy cars, the golden coins, the expensive clothes? In the end, what did they really bring? Joy, fulfillment, true wealth? "No, Badger," Tortoise said, her voice firm but calm. "I've seen the cost of those risks. You may have made money, but what have you really built? Nothing that will last. I'd rather be poor and content than rich and hollow." Badger laughed, a cruel sound that echoed through the trees. "We'll see about that." Tortoise stood firm, but the words of Badger haunted her. Had she made the right choice? Was this path, slow and steady as it was, truly the one that would lead to the life she wanted? As she walked back to her quiet home, she felt a shift in the air, a sense of urgency. The wind carried with it a whisper of doubt, as if the world was telling her that it wasn't too late to change her course. But the truth is, she knew deep down that her journey wasn't about the final destination. It was about the process, building wealth, yes, but also character. The decision she faced now was about what she valued more, the shiny objects that would fade or the lasting legacy she could build by staying true to her principles. As the cool night air wrapped around her, Tortoise felt the weight of that decision settling into her bones. She wasn't just building wealth, she was building her future. The next morning, Tortoise was walking through the village square when she noticed something startling. The merchant stall that had once dazzled with shiny gold coins and trinkets was now a shadow of its former self. The merchandise was gone, and the merchant himself stood in front of an empty cart, looking defeated. "Good morning, Tortoise," he said, his voice hollow. "I've lost everything. All the quick deals, all the fast trades. I was too greedy, too eager for what I thought would be easy money. No, I'm left with nothing." Tortoise stopped, her heart heavy. "I warned you," she said quietly, remembering the time she had seen him rushing to catch the latest opportunity without considering the consequences. False wealth was a trap, and it had caught him. As Tortoise continued her walk home, a sudden chill ran through her. Was this the world she was walking into, a world where everyone was rushing after the next big thing, leaving behind nothing of value? Was it too late to build a life of lasting wealth? She arrived at her doorstep and paused. Sparrow had warned her, but now the doubts crept in. Was it too late to change? Was she too far behind? Could she keep moving forward and still succeed? Tortoise faces the consequences of her decision. She sees the fall of others around her, victims of the very temptations she had once been lured by. But instead of falling into despair, she holds on to the values that have guided her from the start: patience, integrity, and long-term thinking. While others may rush for quick gains, Tortoise's slow, steady approach will ensure that her wealth, both personal and financial, will be sustainable. Her journey has not been easy, but it has been worthwhile. As the tortoise sat on her favorite rock, she reflected on the long journey she had taken. The doubts, the temptations, the voices urging her to rush, she had faced them all. Yet, despite everything, she had remained true to what she had always known deep inside. Wealth isn't just about speed, it's about strategy, patience, and making the right moves at the right time. She had watched Squirrel lose half his fortune by chasing the next big thing. She had seen merchants go bankrupt, fooled by the illusion of easy wealth. Even Badger, with all his reckless confidence, had nothing lasting to show for his risks. Meanwhile, the great oak tree stood tall, unchanged by the chaos around it, a symbol of time, patience, and steady growth. Tortoise smiled. She had finally made her decision. She would not abandon patience, but she also wouldn't ignore opportunity. Instead of seeing speed and patience as opposing forces, she realized they could work together. She would invest steadily, allowing compound interest to work in her favor. She would take calculated risks, but only after careful research and preparation. She would not be swayed by greed, fear, or urgency, only by wisdom. Because wealth isn't about how fast you go, it's about how well you play the game. As the wind rustled through the trees, carrying the whispers of the past and the promises of the future, Tortoise knew she had chosen the right path. The real victory isn't just in financial rewards, it's in mastering patience, resisting shortcuts, and making smart, consistent choices. Now, it's your turn. Are you ready to adopt the tortoise's mindset? First, start small. Save consistently, even if it's just a little. Secondly, invest wisely. Choose long-term, sustainable strategies. And thirdly, stay patient. Real wealth is built over time, not overnight. The sooner you begin, the sooner you'll see results. If you enjoyed this lesson, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's build a future of patience, growth, and financial freedom, one smart decision at a time. Subscribe to our channel for more life lessons and financial tips that can help you on your journey to financial success.